Alright. Let me get this loaded, people. First of all, put this damn thing on silent. Right. Damn. Right. Okay. Bringing this up, people. Just gonna share it. Just un momento. Right, what is going on, man? Why have they changed all of this? There it is. Almost there. It's just they've changed the layout on my app. So almost done, people. Alright. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, so let me just take this off that. Make that easier. Cool. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد people فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Ying Layth bienvenidos a todos Bakhair Ragle people Khushamadid and as always Swagatam Right, so alright, look, salam from Cape Town. Alright. You remind me of Tekken. I never used to play Tekken much. A bit prior to that, Street Fighter. Back in those days as a kid, we used to play Street Fighter. Do you work out in Ramadan? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Gotta be done. Shahreen, Robin, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Ramadan Kareem. Ramadan Kareem and Mubarak to all of you people. You know, may Allah bless this month for you all, for your family. May He make it a month of gains in all aspects. Ameen, ameen. Right, so what is going on? What is going on? No sooner does Ramadan arrive that we have the usual Ramadan debates are going on. The Taraweeh debates are going on. The moon sighting issue. The dawn issue. Hi. These masail. You've got, you see, the more I think of it, the more I feel staying away from religious people is just, is from the wajibat. But I really do feel that, my nasiha really to people, this is my nasiha. I think you should all make your circles of friends, your circle of, your circles in general that you will chill out with or you will be with, that you will chat with, make those people or make those circles of people who are just normal people. Normal but talented, of course, but just regular. I seriously feel that these religious circles are toxic, kind of unhealthy people. There's no harm in knowing them, and maybe as an occasional you resort to, it's an occasional group. but they're not your main kind of cohort of friends or your circles. I mean, just make regular friends with normal people out there, people with interests. I mean, people with, they could have an interest in, share common interests, maybe in sports if you do sports, maybe in other things, maybe a bit if you want to, you know, challenge the intellect. Arts, for example, people who are into arts, maybe they're into poetry, maybe they're into literature, they're into discussions, philosophical discussions maybe. I would really advise having circles like that. The religious crowd are just, you see, you've got to understand that they will forever be constrained, and they're kind of like a very, I hate to say this, but they're like they can be a very nasty and toxic kind of atmosphere if that's your main group in life. I mean, if that's just one of your several that, you know, you see them but they're not your main people, then I think you're fine. But if you start, just that becomes your main crowd, you will really suffer, unfortunately. I mean, you'll suffer in life. You've got a hell of a road in front of you. That's my nasiha. You don't need to take it, but I'm telling you that it's a toxic thing, right? So what else is going on? I mean, people, they're saying, they're giving some of their thoughts on the matter, whether I'm totally wacko or that's the truth. But I'm just being honest and seriously, do not let these people guilt trip you. Guilt tripping, they have no right to guilt trip, right? They'll be just as worse. I mean, let alone just as bad, they will be worse. I'm telling you, I have access to religious people as a mufti. I can tell you that they, if not on an equal length, these people will be worse behind closed doors. So you'd rather just seek out decent human beings who are just human beings, and they're good, and you know they've got humanity in them, and that comes first. You know, that's the primary target, and then other interests to challenge your intellect and challenge, I don't know, maybe your hobbies and things like that. Cool. So with that in mind, because I'm seeing, even with this Ramadan thing, I'm seeing it again now. I'm seeing all the bickering, all the fighting, all the it's a shame, but we've become a you see, Arthur. You see, it's interesting because here's a theory of mine. This is based on a general theory that you do find within among sociologists and psychologists and other people, where they speak of how people view themselves. We view ourselves in relation to others. That's on a social perspective. That's in terms of what we get by with. And quite a few people have written on that, and they present certain theories. I think I've spoken about them in the past as well. But my theory is, I think religion is the same for people. And by religion, I mean institutionalized religion. Not, you see, to me, Islam today obviously is an institutionalized religion, unfortunately, but in essence the heart of Islam is not an institutionalized religion. And I feel that deen of fitrah is really ought to have its kind of shackles broken, and it ought to be the free spirit that it was. So coming back to my point, this example I've mentioned once before as well, that there's a game devised by certain researchers where they will say that, let's say, to see how people will make themselves suffer if it has to be so long. There's a very interesting game. I'll quickly reiterate it to you, that it's a hypothetical game where you and a person are at the table, and somebody comes in and puts £1 million on the table in a bag and states that you can have this, you can walk out of this door with this, what's on the table, with the condition, just one condition, bishartin wahid, people, And that is that the other, not you, the other person gets to make you one offer of what your share is from this money. If you accept, you both walk out with that allotted share. If you decline, nobody walks out with anything. There is no conferring and there is no second chances. That is the only shart, the only condition. Now, you think, well, okay, fine. Now, logic would teach you that something is better than nothing. Yeah, so if I walked into this room now, let's say I've not walked in with my wallet, so I've walked in with no cash. If I left this room with £100 richer than when I walked in, £100 ain't much, but still, it's better than nothing. So logic would dictate that surely, since anything is better than nothing, this person A, would approve. But let's say from that million, the other person said, okay, you will get £1,000. That's it. Now, you just have to think about it. You will say, up yours, mate. No way on earth do I get 1,000 out of a million. So you would happily walk out with nothing and making sure they lose everything, rather than you walk out with something so small. Now, you can just think about it, and most human beings, the absolute majority of them, will go with the same. And statistics showed that unless it was 20 to 30% of the overall offering at least, this participant wouldn't decline. They wouldn't accept it. So they were trying to understand, well, what's the psychology behind this? Right, so the psychology behind this is that people, you see, contentment is often in relation to others. Like people, satisfaction, better than contentment. I don't mean contentment. Satisfaction, self-satisfaction is in relation to others. So I will feel happy with things so long as I can compare with other people in my social surroundings and we're okay. So, you know, if I've got a Samsung phone, it's okay so long as, you know, other people have got, let's say, similar kind of phones. If I've got, let's say, a Samsung and everybody's got like 8 models above mine, then this very same phone that once brought me happiness will no longer bring me happiness, because I view things in relation to others. And I have to, and that's the kind of structure by which I get by. And on this note, I actually think that the Sufis historically were onto something. And I mean, I'm sure some of them probably still are, but this whole thing of the nafs, when they spoke about this, that, you see, you have to stop kind of like seeing this kind of seeing yourself through the social lens or in relation to others. There has to be a disconnect and just a kind of contentment. I think that is, if we are capable of doing that, we can get very far in life, although I think that is very difficult. And my theory was, I feel people see religion in the same way, except in an impositional way. That I am happy with my religion so long as I can impose it on all others who subscribe to it as well. The moment I can't impose it, or at least theoretically impose it on others, then I'm no longer happy with this. So it's interesting. I mean, that's just some food for thought. I find that people today feel, and this is a big question mark, and I'm going to leave this point with you guys and let's move on to some questions. I find that today people feel that if there was not a very a very detailed list of do's and don'ts from God, let's say there are some do's and don'ts, like do not murder, do not do things, not those kind of broad ones. Those everybody accepts. People feel if there isn't fine, like very specific detailed do's and don'ts about our daily lives from God, then religion is useless. And I find that quite disconcerting. I find that quite problematic, because to me that says a lot about people's personality and their relationship then with God. Because their relationship seems to only work in this kind of almost like a sadomasochistic kind of manner, of like being very strictly told off about certain things. And so just knowing, like, imagine God just told you, just believe in me, that's it. I'm not asking you anything else. Okay, I'll tell you a few things. Don't kill people. Yeah, a few, let's just say some major prime commandments only, which universally are accepted. Like, don't steal, don't do this, don't do that. And that's it. Just believe in me. To most people, they would lose their faith if God just said, simply believe in me. And that is, to me, like I said, it's very disconcerting, because that is pretty much the entire Meccan period. And the real first major pillars of personalities who embraced Islam in that period, just based on just God. They didn't come to Islam based on a long list of, when you're buying, make sure you pronounce this word, and when the fast begins, it better have the intention the night before, and when, if you make an intention. And they never had any of this. It was just God. اعلموا أنه لا إله إلا الله. Just know that there is only one God. So that's I think some interesting food for thought. People, Ramadan. Alright, so tonight what we're going to do is, I will be taking a look, we'll take a look at some Ramadan, like a refresher on some top often asked questions to do with Ramadan. I've got quite a few sent to me, but I'll take a few others as well. Excuse me. So we'll do that. In addition to that, we'll be taking a look at this hadith to do with, if somebody consumes alcohol, is their salah acceptable? And that it is rejected for 40 days. Why is that hadith important? The reason that hadith is important is because many people are basing fasts on that as well, saying that, well, if you drank alcohol, or if you smoked weed, or if you took drugs, or if you did something, your salah and saum are unacceptable for 40 days. That is baseless. It is nonsense. The hadith is unacceptable, and I will go through the whole detail of that, showing why the hadith is unacceptable. So we'll take a look at that a little later on. Yep, Ustad Muhammad saying da'if. Oh, that reminds me, Ustad Muhammad, I'm going to come to a question I think that you asked me once previously as well, about Makkah. So the third thing I will be taking a look at as well, a heartfelt reply to my Wahhabi friend, my Wobbler friend. So there's a guy who I've never heard of this guy, but he took out his time to refute me. So it's very kind of him. Allah, Allah, Allah. What is it? तुम तो तकल्लुफ को भी इखलास समझते हो फराज, दोस्त नहीं होता हर हाथ मिलाने वाला. These people. So there's this guy. I'm gonna try and bring up. I'll show you guys what he looks like. And so somebody sent me a link or something of his, saying, don't know if this guy's doing he's done a refutation on you. And so I thought, well, I have to, I feel I'm obliged, right? So I thought, who is this guy first of all? And you couldn't make this up, people. Honestly, you couldn't make this up. Dear. Oh, bloody hell. Blimey. It's Bin Laden. I mean, just look at it. Bin Laden seems to have been resurrected, and he's done a refutation of me. Honestly, these people, man, they couldn't, you know, if the devil tried to do a makeover to make them look more pathetic, he couldn't have done a here he is. Trying to show it so you can't. Allah. Ah, blimey, good looking fella, you know this one. So I'm going to come to him a little later on. Is that a beard, for God's sake? Is that a beard? Anyway, this one, my friend. This one, my lovely friend. I'm going to speak about him a little later on. And his refutation. And I'll kind, loving reply. You know, holy month. Anyway, that's in the Mufti Masala section. We'll take a look at that as well. But let's take a look at your questions more importantly. Yunus, ahlan wa sahlan. Masood, ahlan wa sahlan. Mufti Abu Layth, is it okay to make dua in English in Salah? Absolutely. Dua in Salah, according to the school of Medina, can be made in English. It can be made in any language. So, for example, if you're in sujood or anything like that, you can make dua. That's absolutely fine. And the dua is unrestricted. You can ask for anything. Anything. So you're like, and Ya Allah, can I? But you better not be whispering it a bit aloud so the person next to you can hear it. And since it's in English, he understands. He's like, bloody hell, for me too, bro, for me too. Or he starts saying, can I have one of those? That dua for me as well, please. Right, so. Well, let's take a look at some questions, people. What is going on? Well, I'll try to bring up some. Right, I'm going to try and bring up some of the questions you've asked. Right, first of all, one question before I forget. I was asked by a few people, and Ustad Muhammad, who is online as well, I believe, he'd asked me, what is the city Bakkah? إن أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة. That the first house that had been made, most like the context is dedicated to worship, was in, and this is linnas for people, in the place of Bakkah. Now, many people have said that Bakkah is Makkah. Okay, many people have said that. However, in my understanding, I've been looking into this slightly. My understanding is that's not the case, most likely. I mean, Allahu A'lam. But I feel that Bakkah, most likely, Allahu A'lam. Some people say Allah just used a historical term here, that Makkah may have been called Bakkah a long time ago. Although the historians generally do not list from the names of Makkah, from the many names given to Makkah, for example, Qura, or different kind of names that people will give, what isn't generally recognized is Bakkah. However, a bit further north towards the Levant region, in modern day Lebanon, that kind of area, you do have a city of Ba'alabak. Okay, so Ba'albak, Bak here in antiquity was a term referring to city. So Bakkah, in that understanding, in that part, this is going slightly north, so towards the, which would be modern day Lebanon, that area. there was a city dedicated to, or it was in the name of Baal, meant Lord, like Rabb in the ancient language. And so this was a city dedicated to the Lord, Baal Bak. Now, some people then said that later on Baal, although many believed meant just Sayyid or Rabb, like the equivalent in Arabic, or Lord, but became specific with a particular type of God later on. And it seems that a lot of historical research, anthropological findings demonstrate that there has been most likely continuous there's been continuous habitation of this region, of this city, that human beings have inhabited this place for continuous 8,000 to 9,000 years of civilization. So it may be that is perhaps the place, Allahu A'lam, that Bakkah may have been that region. Because there still is the famous kind of temple in Baalbek, and you can see it online and things like this. Another reason why I don't feel it was Mecca is because the Arabian Peninsula was not inhabited by humans for thousands and thousands of years ago. So for example, 7,000 years ago, it wouldn't have been inhabited. In fact, according to our general Islamic understanding, another understanding, Ibrahim alayhi salam went to Mecca, and he's kind of built this, the first, he's kind of helped establish the Kaaba. Now Ibrahim alayhi salam is not that, even if we're stretching this between 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, that's still not 7,000 years ago, for example. The other thing is that this house, if you're going to say Ibrahim in Ibrahim alayhi salam's time, and there were certain Arabian tribes around in Arabia, although Mecca wasn't so inhabited at that time, it wasn't, they would have not been calling it Bakkah. They would have been referring to this as it became known as Mecca. The other thing is that even if people had crossed that region, this wasn't a house for linnas, as the verse says. So if you're going to say, well, Adam alayhi salam had built something here, so long ago, let's just say, if we run with that hypothesis, the issue is it wasn't for mankind. It may have been that Adam alayhi salam had something specific for him. It may have been, but it wasn't something for linnas in general. So it may be, most likely, it resonates that this verse is speaking about a settlement or a place that people, one of the first human civilization settlements took place and began to worship God. And that seems to, Allahu A'lam, at this stage maybe resonate with Ba'alabak. Wallahu A'lam. But that's something I think obviously we have no, absolute knowledge belongs to Allah alone. Imam Mark is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, people. Imam Mark, awesome, legendary Imam from the States. Do reach out to him with your questions as well. Right. Right, people. Salam, Mufti. Who do you think the Pharaoh of the Exodus was? I do think it was Ramesses. I'm not... pretty much I am in line with that way of thinking. Ramesses the second, some people have said the third. I do believe that's the one I'm pretty much going with as well, the one that most people are going with. I mean, some people have said maybe it was Khufu or maybe it was some others, but Allahu A'lam, but that's what I seem to fall in line with as well. And that's a discussion, I have had that in the past, whether Pharaoh was drowned in the Red Sea or not. I've said previously that I feel that maybe he didn't drown. That when Allah says, "Today we save you," it meant that he was saved, and hence that's in line with what the Jewish Bible teaches as well. That Pharaoh did actually go on, and he did live on. Much after the Israelites had left, and actually lived a very long life. Why he didn't pursue the Israelites any further was just because of the humiliation. And I think that makes more sense, that he knew and then did kufr. Because if we're just going to go with the understanding that it was simply death, that with death he knew, then that's all human beings, one could argue. Or most human beings, one could argue. What made Fir'aun so special? But the verse refers to Fir'aun's kufr as juhud, jahad, that it's a kind of arrogance. And that would make sense if he was saved. Anyway, but that's a discussion for another day. Mufti, can you explain? Yes, so that's Aidan, that's what I'm talking about. فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدْنِكَ لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. That today we save you with your body. Now, many people have felt that Fir'aun was that he drowned in the Red Sea, that the sea when it collapsed. The Bible, however, doesn't refer to him drowning. It refers to his chariots and his army drowning, much of his army, but not him. It doesn't specify, the Jewish Bible doesn't specify, or the Old Testament, that Pharaoh actually drowned. And that seems to make sense as well. One, with the verse of the Quran, that today we save you with your body, so that you may be a sign. This is what stubborn kufr is like. Do you understand? Because if he drowned, that may have forced the inhabitants of his successors and the whole army and Pharaoh's inherited, the next Pharaoh, to retaliate. Because they would have felt that that these people killed our Pharaoh. And Pharaoh to them was the kind of demigod. He had like a divine status. He wasn't something just like a king or a minister. So it's logical that if Fir'aun was to have been killed whilst chasing the Israelites, that there would have been heavy military repercussions, where they would have come to cross the Jordan River, and they would have caught the Israelites, because the Israelites within decades later, but they set up their whole establishment. The kingdom of Israel is set up. Cool. All right, let's move on to some of these questions, people. Is Taraweeh compulsory? Hell no, Taraweeh is not compulsory. Let's move to some of these Ramadan questions, right? So beginning with that, is Taraweeh compulsory? No, it is not. And the ulama disagree on the status of Taraweeh. Now, they all accept that Taraweeh was something that the Prophet did. What status did what ranking did this prayer take? They accept, let me simplify this. Muslims accept that there was a prayer that the Prophet that he prayed himself during the month of Ramadan in isolation. They agree on this. Then they disagree on how that prayer ranks amongst our duties, and they disagree on how this prayer should be prayed. So they disagree on all of that. They just accept that the Prophet did pray. We're not quite sure. It's not quite agreed upon how or what he prayed, but we understand that he did pray, and then everybody has kind of taken their own analysis of what happened. We also accept that the Prophet never ever prayed in the mosque. Right, so we all accept this about the Prophet, that he prayed some prayers at home. That's it. Privately. They were private prayers. Now, some people have understood Taraweeh to be like a semi or a quasi-obligatory prayer. So they don't call it obligatory, but some of them will say it's like, some of the Hanafiya will place it towards a wajib almost. Or those who will say it's a sunnah mu'akkada and emphasize sunnah, but will say you're sinful for leaving it. Now that makes it quasi-obligatory, because if you're sinful for leaving it, then it must be an obligation. So leaving the semantics aside, this is what they believe, that a person is sinful if he doesn't pray Taraweeh. that was not the understanding that was inherited in the city of the Prophet. The city of the Prophet, people, Madinatul Munawwara, with the companions living there and thousands of them that were buried there, and their students, and then their students. So their students being the Tabi'een, and their students being the Tabi'een, those who come after them, and amongst them Imam Malik. He transmits this understanding when he's asked about Taraweeh. Imam Malik said that it's a recommended prayer. That it's recommended, you can pray it. Imam Malik never used to pray the Taraweeh in the masjid, and he actually said that personally, he said, I prefer for people to pray it at home. However, he said, let the common people, let people also pray in the mosque, don't prevent them from praying it in the mosque and don't turn them away. Let the mosques also be busy with people, because it gives people an opportunity to spend time in the masjid where they otherwise may not. That said, Imam Malik did himself never perform Taraweeh prayer in the masjid. So its status is generally, as I understand it as well, as Imam Malik taught, that it's just a recommended. It's like a nafal, but a slightly higher status, that's all. It's not a sunnah mu'akkada. It's not something an emphasized sunnah. It's good to pray, that's all. If you pray, alhamdulillah, that's good. Praying it is better than not praying it, but if you don't pray Taraweeh, it's not a sin of any sort. Neither is it something that you should be so guilty about or anything like this. The Prophet, if he wanted us to do that, he would have made it very clear to us, but he didn't. So that's the first issue, the status of Taraweeh. The second issue is how many raka'at do we pray? How many raka'at did the Prophet pray? Well, once again, we're not exactly sure. All we know for certainty is the Prophet prayed something. Some narrations, like Aisha radiallahu anha in Bukhari, states that the Prophet would only pray 8 raka'at. And in fact, what he was simply praying was what other people call tahajjud, the night prayer. But so this Taraweeh has a similar status to tahajjud, except it's a slightly like a notch or two above, that's all. Now, so there is that understanding. Some people have said no, that that what you pray is 20 raka'at, and they have some narrations saying that people used to pray 20 raka'at. So after the Prophet had passed away, in Abu Bakr's time, there wasn't that much stability, but in Umar radiallahu anhu's time, he did set up jama'ah in the masjid and made one imam lead them. This was something that Umar radiallahu anh kind of introduced. Okay. And now this opens a different discussion. Was this a bid'ah? That's a different discussion. But this was something that Umar radiallahu anh introduced. And now, how many rak'at did they pray? Imam Malik brings the narration that they only prayed 8. And he brings the narration that they prayed 20. So including witr 11 or including witr 21, for example, or some people say 23. Now both of these narrations are transmitted by Imam Malik. Some people in Medina used to pray many more. They used to pray up to 36. So in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and some people used to pray up to 40 rak'at. And Imam Ahmad often, I think it's transmitted that he would pray about 40 rak'at. My understanding is as in line with what people like Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi and other Malikiyah, and including other non-Malikis like Imam Shawkani, have explained, that Taraweeh has no fixed number. That it is just it is a recommended act, that, and you can do it. It has no number. It's unlimited. Now, technically, by that understanding, one could just say, how about just praying something like 4 rak'at, or 2 rak'at, or 6 rak'at. Now, I would say, although the least we have in a hadith form explained about the Prophet's prayer himself was 8, so one could set that as the lower limit, and then anything above that. That said, I would feel if a person even prayed any nafal, any nafli prayer, that it would count. I would feel that it would count. That's my personal understanding. So if a person technically even prayed 4 or even prayed 2, I would feel that that still counts. But I would advise people in general when speaking about Taraweeh to set the lower bar, what we know of the Prophet's prayer, and the least that the Prophet prayed was 8. So I would set that as the lower bar, and the top end would just be unlimited. So whatever a person wants to pray, if you want to pray 8, you want to pray 12, you want to pray 16, you want to pray 20, you want to pray 40, you can do as you please. Okay, so that's my understanding on the number of rak'at for Taraweeh. Cool. So I hope that makes sense. And all this what people are saying, you know, oh, it must be 20 or it must be 8, or it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense, people. The what is it? Desh sankat mein. It's a problem, you know, it's one big problem. So these are old debates, people. Very old, outdated. We need to really kind of jettison all this old baggage and move on. There's no big... The fact, if people are praying, alhamdulillah, and if they're not... So the next... Let's move on to some of these questions to do with Ramadan. Right, somebody said, sounds like kindergarten theology. All right, I like it, I like it. Right, so, question I'm often asked, if you can't pray Taraweeh, can you still fast? Hell no. That's a joke. That's a joke. By the way, so of course you can. You must fast. Okay, you must fast, people. Fasting has got nothing to do with the Taraweeh. Okay, as in, I know that it happens in Ramadan. I know that you're going to say that, you know, the hadith that Allah farad al-qiyam was sanna lana siyam. I mean, sorry, farad al-siyam was sanna lana qiyam and so on. But the truth is, if you're going to look at the life of the Prophet, we understand this was something the Prophet kind of prayed, and it's good to do so, but it's nothing to do with your fast. So your fasts are valid, they're still necessary, they're still obligatory. Do fast regardless of what else you do or don't do. Okay, so I just want to be very clear on that, people. Okay, now... Oh, when do we begin Ramadan? I should have begun with that question, actually. Right, so, ahlan wa sahlan, people. Aidan, yep. Otherwise, you're absolved of it, right? Mufti, Maz, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, so when do we begin Ramadan? Look, people, whatever you follow, there's no big deal. Some people began the fast today, in the UK being Monday, and some people will begin tomorrow, because they are going, those who began today went with the general Saudi announcement. Those who will begin the fast tomorrow are going with the other announcement to do with the sighting from Morocco or Northwest Africa, which is pretty close to the UK. And I think it's fine. I don't, honestly, I'm just tired of this this whole debate, really. And I think that this is, it makes no difference at all. I'm not a big fan of Saudi, which is obvious, but is it obvious? I don't think it's obvious. All right, but that said, I'm not against people who followed that. I think that's absolutely fine. Right, so cool. Just to be clear on that. Okay, so if you did follow Saudi or you don't follow Saudi, you follow one of the other, don't worry about it, people. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Right, next question. What is the recommended age for kids to fast? Fast, people. Fast. Fat. We can't... Are you fat shaming kids? Is that what we're doing? We're going to say, he's fat, she's fat. Right, so what is the recommended age for kids to fast? Look, kids do not need to fast, okay? And I know that you start teaching kids salah, and kids can start praying salah at a young age. They do not need to fast at a young age. So even though some of the hadith teach that, you know, children should pray at the age of 10, that does not mean they should fast at the age of 10. So let's just be clear about that. Imam Malik teaches as well, and the general understanding is that kids are not obliged to fast. Now, if they want to fast, they can. Sometimes what happens is, because there's an atmosphere, the children want to join in. So, as an example, my daughter Layla, who's now 7, she wants to fast, but so what it is we're just going to do 2-hour fasts for her, that's all. So when she comes back from school, maybe she can eat something, and then maybe she can have like a 2-hour fast. Like, my point is, you can just train them. You can maybe morning up to noon fasts, or whatever it is, if they want to. Do not impose fasts on children. This kind of imposing piety is wrong as it is, okay? But if they are keen to join in, if it's suitable, then fine. I wouldn't recommend kids fasting these lengthy fasts that we've got in the UK. You know, anything that these kind of 17-hour fasts, 18-hour fasts, this kind of stuff is horrendous. I don't think you should be encouraging children to do that. That's my understanding. Children I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people who should be fasting. So teenagers, they can fast, and that's fine. And they ought to be fasting, most of them, maybe not all, but many of them. But so that's different. That's about children. Cool. Okay, now somebody, Subhan Tayyib, has asked, how did the Prophet ﷺ dress? How, seriously, do you think that we would know how the Prophet... Of course, in all honesty, people, we don't have a true idea. We just have a kind of guess that this is the kind of... They had simple clothing, that they wore a kind of sarong. The companions and people of Arabia, that's what they wore, which in Arabic you call a izar. So that's what they wore, and they had like a shirt. They had a suit. Their version of a suit was that, the izar, with a kind of a slightly lower hanging shirt. They also wore a thobe, which you have today, kind of present still, although today's thobes are not like those of the time of the Prophet. But dress, seriously, I think is something people should not... I do not encourage people to dress in Arabic clothing. I mean, you're free to do whatever the hell you want in life, but on the basis of Islam, I don't encourage it. I discourage it, actually. So it's nothing to do with Islam. It's nothing to do with religion. If you just have a habit of going around dressing like different cultures, you can do what you like. There's no... you can dress like Chinese people tomorrow. The other day you can dress in some African dresses. If you want, the day after you can wear some Arabian dresses. Day after you can wear shalwar kameez. Day after you can do whatever the hell you want. But if you're doing it based on religion, I would actually tell you to not do it. That's my advice. I feel that you've misunderstood religion. And, if the companions could actually see what you people are, well, not you, but what these people are doing, they would actually laugh at them. Is that what you think that we transmitted? A dress code. That would be hilarious. Like, check this out. Like, imagine now Einstein. Check this out. Like, let's say Einstein, when he had his theory of relativity, he's had this breakthrough. So he's wrote books on it, and he's wanted to transmit it, and now he turns up 1,000 years later to see what has the world benefited from what he brought them about his general theory of relativity. And what it is you have a number of people walking around just dressed like Einstein in the early 1900s. Can you imagine the shock of horror? Would be like, right, what have I created? That's not what they transmitted. So that's a proper handicapped way to receive a tradition. You know, somebody comes with a message and you're like, and they're like, are you listening? I've read all of this, are you listening? You're like, and then when you turn away, you go, right, so we got to dress like them. Tell all the guys we got to dress like that from now on. That's it. Anything else? Not really. So, right. So let's keep going with these Ramadan questions. When is a traveller exempt? Allah. When is a traveller exempt? Space-time. Of course, space-time. Einstein was a legend, an absolute legend. May Allah have mercy on him. Ameen. Ameen. And I've got a video that you can make dua for non-Muslims who are dead, but that's a detailed video, and you can check that based on verses of the Quran where people are making dua for the dead. Anyway, let's focus here. When is a traveller exempt? A traveller is exempt the moment the traveller knows and sets that he's setting off on a journey. So if you know that you're going on a journey, you are exempt from fasting. Now, so if I know I'm traveling, now this doesn't mean you can't fast, just to be clear. So if I know, hey, tomorrow I'm taking, I don't know, I'm going from, let's say, Birmingham to London. Now that's clearly a traveller, everybody would accept. Even though I'm going, let's say, in a luxury car. I'm just sleeping in the back. Air conditioning, but still. I'm saying those on purpose just to show how absurd sometimes the fiqh debate can get. Nevertheless, let's say I'm travelling and I know tomorrow I've got a meeting in London. The meeting's at it's at a cinema to watch him. No. Let's say I've got a meeting tomorrow, business meeting, and so because I know that, I'm exempt from the obligation to fast. But I can still fast, I can still do it. It's not that I don't have to, but if I choose not to do it, nobody else can kind of shame me, okay? Sin shaming me. We gotta stop this, serious sin shaming. Sin, this sinocentric lifestyle that we live. Everything is about guilt and making others feel guilty. When we feel so bad about ourselves, then we want others to feel bad about their miserable existence. It's like, why is this guy smiling? You miserable git. You've got a miserable existence. I want you to absorb it. Right, so let's move on. Next question. Nicotine patches. Right, people. Wearing a nicotine patch. Right, no, so, and with this, vaping, smoking, I haven't got any, I don't smoke, people. By the way, for the record, I do not smoke. Okay, some people think that when I give certain rulings, it's because I must be following my desires, my dark and evil desires. I do not smoke. Honestly, I can't tolerate the actual the smoke, as in inhaling the smoke. To me, it's just so. It hurts my lungs. I mean, it hurts my throat. No can do, people. No es posible. Right, so, but that said, many of our brothers and sisters, many Muslims do smoke. So what is the ruling on wearing a nicotine patch? A nicotine patch is fine, people. It does not violate the fast. Right, so this has been discussed by the Grand Maliki Mufti of his era, Sheikh Muhammad Aziz Al-Juayyid, who was the Grand Mufti of the Maliki and the Sheikh al-Islam of his time in Tunis, who gave this fatwa in the 60s when he's speaking about things like taking injections or other that into your body, and then debating the angle with a Hanafi Mufti, what if they contain nutrients? So not just injections, but what if you are injecting nutrients into your body? And he debates very articulately that why this fast is not about becoming weak or starving, because the whole argument of the Hanafi Mufti rested on saying that would give the person strength. And he said, I would agree with you if the objective of Siyam Ramadan is to become weak, but it isn't. So the fatwa was there. I totally agree with it. Nicotine, and many people today have given this fatwa. I'm just saying, the reason I'm quoting him is because he's quite classical compared to them. I mean, but at least we're talking, 4 or 5 decades ago. But many ulama today, many of the ulama of Al-Azhar, many of the Dur al-Iftar, the places of Iftar throughout the Muslim world, in Jordan, in other places, they've given these kind of fatwas that nicotine patches are fine. Vaping, I would feel, is the same. I would feel that it does not violate the fast. Why? Because it's not actually nutrients in that sense. It's not food, even though it is a kind of steam that you are taking in. It's vape. So I'm not saying these are good things. I want to be clear here that sometimes people think anything I say is not haram must automatically be good. You must do these things. So it's not haram on a normal day to eat soil. It doesn't mean you'll start going out and eating soil. Not everything that is not good for you has to be haram. So when I say something is not haram, I'm not encouraging you to do it. I'm just being clear, but I will not lie. I refuse to lie on behalf of God and say that it is haram just to push an agenda in saying that you should not do this. I think you should be mature enough to make that decision for yourself or face the consequences yourself. So if you are to damage your health by out of your own judgment to do it, then it's your body, it's your health. I would advise you against it, but if you do it, that's something you make a decision to do. But I will not lie. I refuse to lie on behalf of God and pretend that God said it. That's the difference, okay? So now, vaping, it is not, I don't believe it's haram anyway, but I'm just saying I don't believe it violates the fast. Smoking can become slightly more controversial. I mean, it is much more controversial than vaping, I feel. Now, some ulama have said, modern day ulama like Jamal al-Banna from Egypt, and there are a few other modern day scholars that have, like, if you look online, they have said, some people from Al-Azhar and other places have given the fatwa that smoking does not violate the fast. You see, to me, I would say, I would generally tell people to abstain from smoking anyway, although I do not believe smoking is haram. I've made that very clear. But that said, I believe it's no good for a person's health. Now, if a person followed that fatwa, if they felt that they needed to smoke and nothing else could do it, and they followed that person, generally I would say that, look, don't smoke and resort to patches, nicotine patches and things like this, and this is a great opportunity to stop smoking. That said, some people have said it is permissible and it does not violate the fast. They have based this on prior fiqh understandings, that in fiqh many of the ulama said by just inhaling smoke from a fire, so if you sat on a let's say you sat by a fire and you inhale the smoke, you do not violate the fast. Many ulama would traditionally accepted that did not result in breaking the fast. So the point was, he was basing it on that, in saying, well, what's the difference? Now somebody could say, well, this has some nutritional one would argue it's not nutritional per se. Whether it's the carbon monoxide that is inhaled or nicotine, it's not a nutrient like that, as in something that's going to make you grow and that kind of a nutrient. But you do what you mean by it contains certain ingredients that will be absorbed by the bloodstream. Now that is true, but one may argue, so would smoke contain certain dangerous elements. Just regular smoke from a fire, by inhaling that, it would have, whether you're going to inhale carbon monoxide or other factors that are dangerous in the air, from smoke, but they don't break the fast. That's what I'm trying to say. So I do feel that if people took that ruling, although I would generally, I would advise people, my own ruling is to resort to patches. But these fatwas do exist, and people have given them, and if somebody followed them, are they blameworthy? I don't think we can blame each other in fiqh anyway. Okay, we're not in a position to blame each other. What you can do is adopt the ruling for yourself. If I smoked, I say this, but I don't smoke, so I don't know what it's like for a smoker, but I would probably resort to the patches. That's what I would do, and that's what I'd advise people. Right, next, lipstick and perfume. Somebody has said, Ayub has asked, doesn't cigarettes affect and stuff consciousness as well as for smokers? Not really consciousness in that sense, but it does have an addiction. The blood actually has a much greater affinity to things like carbon monoxide, ironically, than it does even for oxygen, which makes no sense, which means you're hardwired for destruction. But that's biology for you, huh? Imam Zubair is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, tasharrafna. Right, now, wearing lipstick, and for all the men out there, men, if you start wearing, well, it's equality, people. Wearing lipstick or perfume during your fast is absolutely fine. It does not violate the fast, and wearing makeup does not violate the fast. It has nothing to do with the fast at all. So, unless you're eating the makeup, I don't know why people would think that breaks the fast. I'm trying to think. Oh, unless they think with the lipstick, by licking your lips, you're taking in the flavor. Unless that's the thinking. Because I'm trying to think, why would somebody even think wearing lipstick? I mean, come on, all the Maulanas will. Or is that just role play? Is that just when they're with Qari Sahib? When Qari Sahib comes in. You're like, my boy, you come to the room afterwards, okay? So I'm trying to understand why the questioner would ask about lipstick, and I'm assuming it's to do with the flavor. Maybe there's flavored lipsticks. I'll act like I don't know. But anyway, right, so these things do not violate the fast. Now, you can wear lipstick and you can wear perfume. Now, people would say perfume, what if you can taste the smell? To be fair, that's actually a decent point, because you can taste the smell of, as weird as that sounds, people are going to think at this stage, Mufti, you're losing the plot. You need some psychiatric help, right? Which I won't argue against. It's probably true. But this, you see, interestingly, what scientists and medical researchers have now discovered and confirmed, that there are olfactory sensors in the tongue. The same sensors that we have in the nose to pick up smell, the olfactory senses, we have similar olfactory sensors on the tongue with taste sensors in the taste buds. And that's been confirmed now medically. So that is interesting. So when people would say, look, I can taste the smell of something, and or like people might say that tastes like petrol, but they've never actually tasted petrol. That's because these senses of taste and smell are intricately bound, people, intricately bound. But that's fine, it does not violate. Tasting something does not break the fast, by the way. So if you're going to taste something, it does not actually break the fast. It's considered discouraged if it's unnecessary, but it does not break the fast. Hence, a lot of the rulings that the Hanafiya gave and things like this, if a woman is cooking and she needs to test, like, how much salt have I put in there? And she's just like, she can taste it. It does not break the fast. Because tasting is not eating, okay? This one, just tasting, you know, I just tasting. And she tastes away the whole handi. She's like, let me just taste that again. Taste that. 1 hour later, she's eaten the whole handi. This one only taste. This one only makruh. This one. Right. So anyway, that's fine. Right. A controversial one, people. A controversial one. Exams. Are people exempt from fasting for the exams? What do we think? Yes, no, yes. You know what? I should have like a lever where the public can vote. No, yes, no. With you deviant public, all of you would just vote for permissibility anyway. You haramis. Right, so, and after that, I'm going to say it's permissible. See, it takes one to know one. I do believe that exams are a valid excuse to not fast if you feel the need. I'm not saying you need to do this. Listen, I'm using the word need on a few occasions here. It is not necessary for you to forego the fast, to miss the fast. But should you feel the need, should you feel that, look, I'm going to be in an exam hall for 6 hours or 4 hours non-stop or whatever it's going to be, and, you know, it's going to really get to me. I need to perform for the exam. I need to bring my A game to the exam. So therefore, I need to have my drink and like, oh yeah. I need to like write the cheats on here. So I'm like, oh yeah. Right, so I feel that is a valid excuse. Okay, many people today are just unnecessarily being harsh. Look, on this point, I want to say something. Right, look. People are going to say, and I'll repeat this point a little later on or summarize it again, that look, people are going to say that, oh, when we were young, right, when we were young, we put up with A, B, and C. You know, when our parents were young, they did this. When the Sahaba fasted, they did this. Look, all of these things are true. Yeah, people in the past have gone through incredibly difficult times. Accepted. Taslimul musallamat. This is just a given. Okay. It may also be true that you, as a child, or sorry, not as a child, but as a younger person, went through hardship and fasted against the odds. That may also be true. It may be true, and I respect you for that. But we have to stop living vicariously through other young people. They are not us. Right? Now, I went through some very difficult fasts at some point. I went through, or some other times when, you know, back, if you're going to talk 2 decades ago, if you're going to, especially like if you've traveled and you've lived so many years in different parts of the world, but that was, look, that's in the past, that's different, and that's to me, or that's to you. That does not mean other people, like I impose what I went through on other people. They are faqihun nafs, as Imam Shatibi would say. every person is faqihun nafs. He makes his subjective judgment about, he or she makes their own call. Do I do this? Yes or no? And it's their call. It's not for you to make. So leave these people alone. Like, stop guilt tripping them. Like, yeah, you can give your advice by all means, but stop kind of like, I've read certain posts on Facebook saying it is qat'an haram. You will burn in the fire of hell. Remember, the fire of hell is more intense than this heat in the UK. Or remember, calm down, Satan. You're acting like you and your parents and their parents have been living in hell for God knows. You just calm down, mate. Look, undertake all the hardships you want for you. Stop imposing this on others. It comes back to that theory that I said. We have to accept the religion, the deen, for ourselves, not for, I accept it so long as I can impose it on others as well. That we have to have a disconnect. Okay, we've got to cut that umbilical cord, people. Separate ourselves here. So, right, okay, so that's that question. I do believe that it's a valid excuse and you can make that up later on. Right, iftar on an aeroplane. What is going on, people? Iftar on an aeroplane. Now, when should you, if you're traveling on an aeroplane, look, you can just ask the crew, cabin crew, that at what point where we're traveling will we hit sunset? And the time they give you, you can just open the fast based on that. So many of the fuqaha in the past used to say, like there's many fatawa, even you'll find from Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani and other, going as far back as almost 1,000 years ago, where they would say that when they had certain minarets, that when a person was on the minaret at the top of the tower, and the people generally on the ground could see that sunset had occurred, but to the person on the tower, he could still see a tiny part of the disk of the sun. So how does that work then? If the people on the ground open the fast, but the person on the tower in the minaret, he could still see a tiny portion of the sun, does that mean the fast of the people on the ground is invalid? Now, this was a question asked over 1,000 years ago to the ulama, and they said, look, no, that each just goes by their own perspective. That's fine. If he can see the sun, then let him just open the fast accordingly as he sees it set. So, with that in mind, if you're on a plane, just ask the cabin crew, and whatever time they tell you, that's fine. If the time's extraordinarily long, if the time is going to be extraordinarily long, like let's say you're traveling in the opposite direction, so you're going to get like another 4 hours on your fast, then you have the option to either not fast and make it up another time because you're a traveler, or you have the option to, I would say, to just calculate it accordingly. If it's going to be excessively extra. That's my fatwa. Cool. All right, people. What else is going on? Right. So, nosebleed. Oh no, we've got an interesting one before that. Sexual acts, people, and foreplay, which then presumably leads on to nosebleed. That's actually that's the order that they've asked me in. So, okay, sexual acts and right. So, people, this is astaghfirullah. This is Ramadan, people. You shayateen, toba, 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 toba. But I suppose since the devil is deep within, people, since the devil is deep within. Right, sexual acts, what does that mean? Now, I'm not about to go through a list of sexual acts. What I'm about to say is what is haram. Okay. What is haram is clearly, sex is clearly haram during the fast. Okay, so that is haram. However, just acts of foreplay or things like this are not haram. They do not violate the fast. I'm not saying you need to be doing that. I'm not saying that Imam Sahib has to spend his day doing that. I thought that's what I'm meant to do because not haram any. I thought that any. I'm not saying that, but it does not violate the fast. So whether it's simply touching or kissing or whatever, these kind of things do not violate the fast. People have asked, since this is live and unrestricted people, they have asked about oral sex. I would say, although that technically would get in a bit of a kind of grey area, but I would say that I would place that with sex. So that would be generally forbidden during Ramadan. Not during Ramadan, sorry. During the fast. Fast. Calm down. About to have all these people boycott me all of a sudden. During the fast, that would be forbidden. But generally, sexual acts of intimacy are not forbidden and do not violate the fast. This does lead on to the question of things like madhi and money and wadi and all this, in the fiqh books. When you're reading these fiqh books and it's like saying, and this liquid is and this is what is emitted, and you have these fluids and these fluids, and you're like, huh? And they're like, and then you have wadi, and you're like, what the hell is wadi? Wadi, a whole valley. This is right. So they say in the fiqh books, what they will speak about is madhi. Now, madhi is preseminal fluid. Okay, so presumably that's like prostatic fluid or other preseminal fluid in generally speaking. Now you have that, and then you'll have semen, sperm, which they call mani in Arabic. Not like, I suppose it sounds like money. Same kind of sound, I guess, money. But and wadi is something which I'm not exactly sure what wadi is, but they say it's a kind of a fluid that some people can emit this whilst after urinating. So they describe it as a thick, kind of like almost as a very thick sperm-like fluid. That's how they describe it. I don't know. I've got to go to the images section and then just get in trouble that, what the hell are you? They should have like an images with refer to appendix A. So it's like, oh, okay. It's like, click this, right? So now people will say your fast breaks. Does your fast break with emitting any of these fluids? Or with a woman, let's say, so these were male, with the female, just vaginal, whether it's just fluids and things like this that are excreted. Do these break the fast? Now, the answer, I would say, none of them break the fast. Okay, in my understanding, preseminal fluid, vaginal fluids, whether it's going to be actual semen, sperm ejaculation, whether it's going to be wadi, none of these things actually break the fast in my understanding. That is what many ulama as well in the past did say. I mean, they weren't the majority, but people like Ibn Hazm has argued this. You'll have Imam Shawkani and several other people have argued this point that, look, there is no dalil in the Quran wa Sunnah that the fast is broken with by excreting these fluids or by releasing or emitting these fluids. There's no dalil. The Prophet never said this. The Quran never said this. So this is simply the ijtihad of fuqaha. And if you're going to go with principles, then usul teaches that something by default stands, unless categorically overruled. So the fast remains. If you have a fast, it exists, unless it is broken by something that is clearly spoken of in the Quran and Sunnah. So that, in my understanding, does not break the fast. Although many people will say to you that that does. But the thing about even sperm, if you're going to think about it, like even many Hanafiya argued that it does not break the fast. And hence you had even people like Albani argued for that. You'll have people saying, and they touch on the issue of masturbation during Ramadan, and they will say, even though Albani wasn't fond of masturbation, that came out wrong. I'm sure actually I don't know whether he was personally fond of masturbation or not, but I know he wasn't fond of the topic of masturbation being permissible for people. That said, he argued that it does not violate the fast. And many Hanafi ulama, Shawkani, Ibn Hazm, many of these ulama did argue that it does not violate the fast. And that seems to make a lot of sense. That is the ruling, the fatwa that I would give as well, in line with those ulama. Cool. So, right now, next question. Somewhere praising Abhay Chand. Okay, so what? Right, no idea what that is. Right, so I've answered those questions. Right, nosebleed. I don't know why these questions go in that order. All of those lead to nosebleed. It's like, what is this person even doing? What's the intensity levels? Oh, I'm so committed to nose starts bleeding. Does the nosebleed break the fast? The answer is absolutely no. It does not break the fast. Nothing to worry about there. What if the blood is swallowed? It doesn't still break the fast, in my understanding, because it's not something intentionally done like that. So if a person, with this, we can add the question of vomiting. Does vomiting break the fast? And it doesn't. And even if you end up obviously having remnants of the vomit, or it kind of comes up and goes down, but that's because these things are not, people don't intentionally do and they don't consider that food. Although it's regurgitated food, but it's not considered food at a social level, so people would never consume to be disgusting and gross. Mufti, what the hell is wrong with you? But nobody would consume vomit, so nobody's sane, right? So these things do not break the fast. Nosebleed does not break the fast. And with that, they've asked about cupping. Right, so cool. Next question: injections and a drip. Being on a drip. You know, in places like Pakistan, if you fall ill, the first thing for you to have satisfaction that this is a genuine doctor, they have to just put you on a drip. So you're just lying there with a drip, and this guy's a genuine doctor. Right, look, in my understanding, these things do not break the fast, and I've highlighted the fatwa already of Sheikh Muhammad Aziz al-Ju'ayyid, who was the Grand Mufti of his time of Tunisia, and the Sheikh al-Islam of the Malikiya. Now, he has given that fatwa about injections and nutritional injections as well. So I absolutely endorse and agree and support that ruling. So I think that's absolutely fine. Right, somebody's asked, Nahwu Sarf, Mufti, are you struggling with birth productivity? Why, what tips you got, you naughty? Right, so these are the kind of is this the best my haters can do? I mean, you need to, a bit more energy, a bit more. Mufti, are you struggling? Anyway, next question. Right, so varying fasts. Oh, that's going to be a slightly controversial. Let's take a few others on fasting. Then I'm going to come into what are the different types of fasts people can be doing for those who are struggling. That's going to be slightly controversial, you know. Not like me to do anything controversial. But if there's any others to do with... let me just check this because I wanted to recap. Right, sorry, on eardrops and eyedrops. Eardrops and eyedrops. Look, even though some, I mean, okay, not with the eyes, but with the ears, the canals and whatever can be connected with the throat, but that's irrelevant. Nobody eats or consumes by pouring things into their ears. So we've got to keep things natural, people. How was the deen in the time of the Prophet? What were they trying to do? What was the purpose of the fast? Once you understand that, you realize that these things make no sense. You know, many of these ulama saying, oh, if you had eardrops, your fast breaks, or water got into your ear, that's it, you've broken your fast. And that is absurd. I mean, have you ever thought, I know I'm thirsty, let me just pour that into my... And if you have, then, my friend, you've got greater problems. You're worried about the wrong kind of problems. There's a hierarchy. You've got some serious psychiatric problems going on. So, yeah. So that does not break the fast, okay? Just to be clear about that. Let's also... Right, okay, now, are there any... What about nasal sprays? Nasal sprays are fine. You can use nasal sprays. They do not break the fast. What about, I've been asked as well about using things like toothpaste or just say throughout the day, breath fresheners or Listerine kind of strips that you have these, you just place them on your tongue and they dissolve. Or mouthwash, using these kind of things whilst fasting. These things do not break the fast, people. And I encourage, I implore. Bahut dhanyawad. People, please brush your teeth. Use breath fresheners for God's sake. Right? Use Listerine. Use goddamn. Some of you use bleach. Because the ozone layer cannot take this anymore. Just because you're fasting doesn't mean you need to turn, you need to, what? I'm fasting. It's like, you know, the radioactive kind of readings just go, they rocket. Like, what the hell was that? It is one of the most disgusting things that you can imagine, seriously, is bad breath. That is one of the most despicable. Honestly, that is just so... And so if, whilst you're going to be fasting, because you won't be consuming much, so naturally the bodily kind of, the saliva in your mouth is not going to be generated as much as it will on a regular day. Therefore, it is likely that you will have odor. And I'm saying it nicely. You're going to have some stench coming out of your mouth. For God's sake, for the love of humanity, brush your teeth. If you go to work, then take with you these strips or breath fresheners, or you can get small kind of mouthwashes, travel size. Take them. Rinse your mouth out. Be fresh, people. Be fresh, okay? That is a must. This is wajib. I'm telling you, this is wajib. Right? Forget, this is more wajib than your fast. Because your fast just depends, it's just for your sake. This is for the sake of humanity. Right? Have compassion on those around you. You know, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا, and who gave life to, to others. It's as though he gave life to the whole of humanity. So, they go, dragon breath, like, in the name of Islam. And then they're using these hadith. Oh, the hadith says, this is more beloved then the smell of perfume. You're thinking, are you buzzing? Your bad breath is better than perfume. Are you have you been drinking while fasting? Because you're seriously intoxicated. Of course this ain't better than bloody perfume. This is disgusting. That hadith was said as a consolation to somebody who felt it on a personal level. Like if a person felt, like imagine you're fasting and think, oh my God, I need to do something about my breath. Now this might, even though the Sahaba would use fresh siwak, miswak, which people call miswak, the stick. Now that, if you ever use that, it's actually very fresh and it freshens the mouth and it's like using toothpaste. It's actually the equivalent, the natural kind of equivalent. Now, but imagine a person felt that, like on a personal level, they felt like, oh my God, like my breath, I better go. But that feeling, to compensate for that feeling and to console the believer, the Prophet said that, look, don't worry, like that, tranquilo, that this is more beloved to Allah. Like meaning like don't let yourself, don't feel bad. Not that don't change it, of course change it. But don't let it get you down that you have to do this. Okay, that's what it is. Not that like feel proud about it. Yeah, I got bad breath. God loves bad breath. What kind of what kind of a twisted image are you giving about God? That he loves bad breath. That's like crazy, right? So, and especially with what Muslims eat anyway with Ramadan, they're like kebabs and all the belching and all kinds of nonsense, right? So, right, let's get to this point, people. I've been asked by a few people. Now, here's an important question. I've been asked by a few people that they struggle to fast and that they are just being very honest with me. So these people have said to me, right now, look, I just want to say that I appreciate people just being transparent and their levels of honesty. So they have said to me that, look, I cannot do the fast. Okay, it is just too much for me. I mean, they won't die, but it's obviously nobody's saying that you have to die. It's not that level, but it's just too much for them. I mean, they're normal, healthy people. They're not necessarily unhealthy. I mean, I don't know if they've got certain levels, but nothing apparently unhealthy about them. I'm not saying they're kind of in a hospital or something, but they've just been honest with me and they've said, look, I can't do this. That this is in the UK. Some people have said to me that it's way too much for them. It's too long. It coincides at a time of the year with it just getting warm. And in the UK, people are not used to warm weather. The days are just too long. It affects them. They find themselves day after day that they are stuffing themselves. Okay, when you open the fast, people stuff themselves because they're starving. Then they feel that they're force feeding themselves for sahur because they don't want to starve for the next 16, 17 hours. So they're force feeding themselves. And then they're starving for so long. They're so underproductive. They're so lethargic. They non-stop just... And even if they get used to it, then when they open it, they just stuff themselves. And then and this is a repetitive cycle in which they feel that they're doing themselves more harm than good. So what can they do? Now, I will express the different opinions, okay? And I feel that it is permissible for people to follow these opinions. I'm not saying they have to follow them, okay? So I'm being very clear on that. Now, one understanding is that you just fast, as it is, with the hours in a timetable, and you can go by any timetable. The timetables don't, I mean, any local timetable, sorry, that's what I mean. So you could be, whatever kind of, you don't have to go with a particular mosque. You can go with any kind of mosque that you're comfortable with or you're setting. Now, that's the normal standard thing, that you do what everybody's doing. That is option A, that you fast with dawn. There is some problem with dawn. Some people, let's say in Birmingham, people are placing dawn probably, I don't know, it's before 4 o'clock. They're probably saying maybe 3:45, that kind of time, AM. Some people are placing it much more earlier. That, you know, they do that anyway, but I'm just giving you an idea. So you could just go with that and open at sunset. But that will lead to an excess amount of hours fasting. That's option A. And many Muslims are doing that, and I applaud it. And we all encourage them and make dua for them. May Allah bless them. Option B is that you can extend your sahur dawn time up until Fajr. Up until sunrise. Just before sunrise, with enough to quickly just pray Fajr. That's, or what we call subah. So 5 minutes before sunrise, let's say. Now that's an option. If that helps, you can take that. That's option B. This was practiced by several Sahaba. It was practiced by certain Tabi'een. You've got from, I believe, Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, and other companions used to say that we would eat in the time of the Prophet and it would be daylight except the sun hadn't risen. And I believe there's a tradition from Uthman, and there's certain other people come after, A'mash, and other people who used to openly practice this. So that's option B, if that helps. Now, I did tell that to some of these individuals. Now, to them, this was not enough. Like, it did add on another hour, but it was still way too lengthy for them. Option C is a fatwa that you can estimate a fast, the period that you will be fasting. Now, this was a fatwa given traditionally by great scholars like Muhammad Abdul, by Rashid Rida, by other great scholars, you know, the Mashayikh of Al-Azhar, the great Sheikh of Al-Azhar, the senior grand muftis of Al-Azhar, like Jad al-Haq, like I believe maybe Mustafa Maraghi gave it as well, but I'm not too sure about him. Sayyid Tantawi gave this fatwa, but many, right up until today, Diyarul Iftar al-Misriya, the main fatwa council of Egypt, still gives this fatwa, that, and what they say is any countries above 45 degrees latitude. So that definitely includes the UK. I believe Birmingham is, I believe we're 52, I think. But nevertheless, I mean, these countries, it includes most of Europe, apart from southern, like Spain is exempt pretty much, but the rest of Europe almost comes in. It includes most of the northern states of America. It includes Canada. It includes this kind of northern hemisphere above 45 degrees. Now, they said that these people can estimate the fast based on how the Prophet would have fasted. So that region where revelation came, so the Hijaz, Makkah, Medina, how they would have fasted. So you could just take a calendar. You could do that with what are the timings there today, or take, some of them have said that this could be estimated at splitting the day and night in half. So you have 12 hours day, 12 hours night. You split it like that. And maybe, so anything 12 hours above is enough to estimate as a fast time. So let's say 13 hours would be a valid fast. Now, based on this, a person could begin estimate, and this fatwa of estimation, by the way, was also given by Sheikh Zarqa as well. He also agreed with the 45 degrees, kind of latitude as well. Now, so what they could in essence do is say, well, I'm going to begin at dawn. So let's say that's 4 o'clock as an example. Now, anything, let's say 13 hours, they could just estimate a 13-hour onward fast. They could fast for 13 hours. They could fast for 14, whatever they feel they could do. They could open it, anything, whether it's 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m., they could open the fast. This is a valid opinion. There are certain Al-Azhari Mashayikh that are also endorsing this, that 12 hours, they've said even 12 hours would do, but above, they've encouraged for a minimum of 13. So that's, I feel, a valid position. So if a person was doing that, their fast would still be acceptable if they felt that they couldn't do the other fast. Now, what is the reasoning behind this? Okay, now there are some other opinions as well, with some people like Sheikh Hussein Halawa, one of the senior muftis of the Majlis al-Iftar, has given a fatwa of saying a person, if they felt incapable, they could just choose a different time of the year for those countries above 48 degrees latitude. But I'm focusing on option C for these people, in saying, and they've asked me to explain how would this be justified. Now, the reasoning behind this is, one, that this deen is a deen of ease. Two, that when Ramadan came, you have to remember that in the time of the Prophet, what were the kind of fasts that they were enduring? Now, the general fasts that they would have endured would have been around the 13-hour kind of mark. That's what they would have fasted. They wouldn't have been, I mean, even if you stretch it, you're looking at about 14, and not even that really. And on this note, I'd like to explain to people something, and that goes into this, the sacred, that ties into this discussion of the sacred months and how the Arabs kept a calendar. Now, this is something that I'd like you to pay attention. It's going to be, it's something a bit, it could kind of go over if you don't really focus. And that is that, look, in the time of the Prophet and pre-Islamic Arabia, the calendar that was kept was a lunar calendar, but it was a luni-solar calendar. Very much like the Jewish calendar is today. And the Jewish calendar has been since the time of Moses and so on. The Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, but it's a luni-solar calendar. And what that means is that although they follow the moon, so it's similar to us, they have the new moon, and they have the 12 months based on the lunar cycle. However, they realign their lunar calendar with the solar calendar. And this works, it does have some complexity to it. And the Arabs had the same thing. They were copying, most likely, the Jewish people. And I'll see if I can bring up, actually, and just, I did have this up earlier to read, unless I've lost it, to show you guys. I wanted it to... Right, so... because I wanted to go through, just read out, to give you an idea of why the Arabs stopped doing this. There was a leap month. So what the Jewish people do is every 3 years or so, they add an extra month. Now, and I'll show you what they do, but the Arabs had this, what they called nasi, or cups, but nasi, which is mentioned in the Quran. So this would, because every year, the lunar calendar goes behind the solar calendar by, it shifts by 10 days. So it's 10 days short. 10, 11 days. Now, in 3 years' time, that's around a month. So they would introduce the nasi, which would realign and knock back all the calendars, all the months to their original position. Now, there is a bit more technicality and complexity to it, which is one of the reasons why you can see the Arabs stop doing it, because they just got distracted. But in the time of the Prophet, it was there. Now, we know this because it's mentioned in the Quran as well. Although the Arabs in the time of the Prophet started messing around with it, because they had this concept of sacred months, which is a whole very different discussion in and of itself. What were the sacred months, for example? Because when people say, no, this calendar, here's a very interesting question. What were these sacred months? Now, if you say, well, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram, and then you say what? Whether you're going to go with Rajab or Safar, or whether you're going to go with Ramadan as Rabi'ah did, which is separate. What was the purpose of these sacred months? What is the purpose? People say, oh, you're not allowed to fight in the sacred months. But one would ask, wait a minute, but wouldn't God aim for a higher standard and say you're not meant to be fighting anyway? but if you say no, but sometimes you have to fight, say, oh well, but in self-defense, surely you can have self-defense in these months as well. And if those months are they sacred to us today? I mean, what do they mean? What are you meant to do in these sacred months? Now, why is that interesting? Because that's interesting because that's actually mentioned in the Quran about the 4 sacred months. And it's mentioned in the Hadith. So we understand that this was a ruling that the Arabs had and the Quran just endorsed for them. Now, today it has no relevance to us. So that shows as well how rulings will change with the day and age. It also raises a hell of a lot of other questions on what were those sacred months even about, and why was one of them all the other, at the other end of the calendar, not linked to the others. Even if you're going to say, well, some of them were for doing Hajj, but okay, but for going to Hajj and coming back from Hajj, but what about the other one? I mean, what's that about? And they wouldn't agree, and some would do it this year, and they would change it around, and that's why the verse of the Quran said, إِنَّمَا النَّسِيءُ زِيَادَةٌ فِي الْكُفْرِ, that people were using this to do kufr, like to kind of mess up people's Hajj and to mess things up and to attack people and the Arabs were never good at keeping dates. You see, and this is important. Why is this important? Because this is the complexity of what you have to do to maintain the lunisolar kind of calendar. You see, so this is an example. I'm just going to read briefly to give you an idea that the Hebrew calendar is based on both the lunar and the solar cycles. Months are measured by one cycle of the moon around the earth. According to the Talmud, one complete cycle of the moon around the earth takes 29.5 days. This value is very close to the average value measured by NASA, which is 29.53. Very, very similar. Since the average value is about 29.5 days, months alternate between 29 and 30 days in the Hebrew calendar. That makes sense so far. I mean, Muslims, that's fine, they would do that. The common year in the Hebrew calendar includes 12 months, but there's a difference of about 11 days, same as the Islamic thing, because they were taking from a lot of the Jewish practices between 12 lunar cycles and 1 solar cycle. You see, one complete cycle of the earth around the sun takes 365.25 days. Right now, however, the lunar takes 354.36. So there's a difference. To synchronize this counting of the days, the Hebrew calendar includes leap years. Now what they do is they have a 19-year cycle, which they have to keep regulating with different variations. So they introduce the leap month on the 3rd year. Then you'll see here that they'll do it on the 3rd, on the 6th, on the 8th, on the 11th, and 14th, 17th, and then 19th. So there's variations. Now, to synchronize the lunar counting of days with the solar cycle, the Hebrew calendar includes these leap years where the month of Adar is replaced by 2 months of Adar. Adar Alif and Adar Beit, which is A and B. So they introduce this. Now, they also mention that, check this out, that in 19 years, it's calculated with a period of 19 years. In 19 years, the total difference between the lunar and solar cycles is 19 times, and it's got the whole calculation here. The difference amounts to 7 30-day periods. Blah, blah, blah. Right? Now, you can read all of this up, but I wanted to highlight an interesting point, that there remains a difference of 3 days. To make up for this difference of 3 days, they are added to the months of Kesvan and Kislev during each 19-year period. So you can see that there was a lot of hard work that the scribes or the people, the scholars, had to do. Right? They had to keep account. They had to, so in year 3, then in year 6, but then it's not in the next 3 years, it's in the next 2 years. In year 8, then it's in 3 years, year 11, then it's in 3 years, year 14, 17, but then 2 years and then 19. So in a 19-year cycle, everything is regulated with the solar calendar. So the lunar and the solar are in sync. Okay. Now the point I'm saying this is the Arabs were doing this. Okay, that's a bit it's a bit complicated, put it aside. What I'm trying to say is the lunar months and the solar months were pretty much, or the solar seasons were in sync. So Ramadan in the Prophet's time was pretty much static. So it would have occurred where if you take Ramadan to be at the 9th month of the calendar, let's say, falling around September, let's say, it meant Ramadan would have always pretty much been in September. Even if it moved back towards August, it would have then been knocked back every so many years. Now, with this in mind, September is when we have the equinox, and March, when night and day are of an equal length, okay? And we're working towards that in September. So this means that really the fasts during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ would not have exceeded really about 13 hours in essence. So that's some of the understanding, and that's some food for thought to take into consideration for this ruling. Now, I'm not saying people need to take it, but those people, somebody said, would that have been in autumn? I mean, but it would, you can understand it would still be warm, it wouldn't be winter. And by the way, this knocking the months back into sequence makes sense, hence their names, Rabi'a, right? So when you have months like Rabi' al-Awwal, Rabi' al-Thani, which means spring, they would occur in spring. And Jamadi al-Ula, Jamadi al-Akhir, Jamad would occur in winter when things would be kind of like frozen, not frozen, but kind of like solid for them. As in, they wouldn't be fruitful. So the months had meanings to what they were doing. And even, I mean, September wouldn't have been cold. I understand it would have been still quite hot as it was edging slightly towards August. But the point is, it would have still been pretty much of an equal length. So that's quite important for us to bear that in mind. So I hope that makes some sense. There is some further understanding that, see, somebody could say, well, look, you know, this is, look, what's wrong with going, this is your cultural, let's say our understanding today. Does Islam really permit us to go with, let's say, the culture of the age? If some people are saying, look, I'm struggling with that. So what? I mean, get up to it. This is an obligation. This is a fair criticism that somebody could make. Somebody could say, look, what's wrong with you guys? Look, if Allah says it's fard, what the hell is wrong with you? Rise to the obligation. And I would say that is a fair criticism if there were not an answer for it in the Sunnah of the Prophet. Now there is. Now if you go, you will find a very interesting hadith I've cited before by Safwan ibn Muattal, about Safwan ibn Muattal, not Mistah. Now, Ibn Muattal, now this companion of the Prophet ﷺ is the one whose wife complains about him. She tells the Prophet that he does not pray. She complains about a few things, but one of the key criticisms I want to focus on is she complains that he does not pray Fajr. He does not pray Subah. He wakes up after after sunrise. And, he misses Fajr. So he is called to the Prophet, and think about it, his people are just outside of Medina. They're not in a distant, they're not like in Switzerland or something. You know, they are within the outskirts, within that kind of, they're still within Hijaz. Now he comes to the Prophet, and the Prophet asks him, look, what are these complaints? And the Prophet asks him, what's this? Do you not wake up for Fajr? And he says, Ya Rasulullah, inna qawmun la nastayqidhu illa ba'da tulu'i shams. That we are a people, our culture, my tribe, or my settlement where we live, our culture, and think about it, this is a very micro culture within Hijaz, within the Arabian culture. He says, inna qawmun, we are a people who do not wake up except after sunrise. Did the Prophet say to him, shame on you, I said, Allah said, and you said this? Did the Prophet say, rise to the challenge. What did the Prophet ﷺ actually say to him? The Prophet said to him, إِذَا اسْتَيْقَظْتَ فَصَلِّ. When you wake up, then pray. See, that is a very interesting hadith, because it shows that, look, the deen, even within a very similar, the Arabian culture was quite homogeneous. I mean, there was, quite a bit of, it wasn't monolithic, but there was a lot of similarity between the different tribes. They were still very similar compared to non-Arabs. Yet within this, you have this microcosm of where a small part of a tribe has a different culture, where they don't wake up early. And it's not just him, his people don't do it. So he says, Inna qawmun, and the Prophet catering for that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is an absolute, it epitomizes that the verse, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that we have not sent you except as a paragon of mercy for the world, for everybody, for everything. And that ad-deenu yusr, this deen is one of ease, people. So I'm not saying that, look, people need to stop what they're doing and fast like this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm actually commending people who are doing the fasts. I'm making dua for them that are doing the lengthy fasts and doing all of these things. May Allah bless us all. May He make us all capable. May He give us the strength. But people who want to choose option B, where they extend, let's say, that's still similar to option A. But those who want to choose option C, where they just want to estimate a set number, let's say a minimum being 13, and they just want to fast 13 hours of the day or anything above that they can, that several ulama have said that is permissible. I feel that it is permissible for them to take that fatwa, and we are not allowed to really criticize them or condemn them. We're not allowed to shame them. We're not allowed to guilt trip them. And it shouldn't bother us. It comes back to that thing that my deen is my deen. My relationship with Allah is my relationship. If I feel that, look, what's wrong with that person? Why can't he fast 17 hours like me? No. You should be concerned about you and Allah and your fast. Alhamdulillah. It's not, lasta alayhim bimusaytir. You're not in charge of them. If they are fasting according to an understanding that has been explained to them, then they have the right to do so. I hope that's been of some help, people. Right, so cool. Let's move on to. Right, we've got quite a bit actually to cover here. Oh my God, is that the time? Yes, salam. Yes, salam. Okay, people, let's take a quick look at this hadith on this hadith to do with if a person drank alcohol, his salah is not accepted. Why am I going through this hadith? I've seen this hadith being cited quite a bit where people have said, right, so somebody has asked that does the school of Medina, in my understanding, this is in line with the principles and the usul of the school of Medina, of Masalih al-Mursala, of ad-Dinu Yusr. That's in line with that. I would agree that fatwa is permissible for people to take. I would agree with that option. I would give the fatwa that it is permissible to take that fatwa, if that makes sense. I haven't made up this ruling. I haven't come up with it. What I'm saying is it is a valid ruling within Islam for people to take. If they felt that life was that difficult for them to fast. And each to their own. And let's not judge people. Okay, you can't, just because you can do something doesn't mean you have the right to judge other people and say that why can't they do it. That's not how this deen works. And that hadith perfectly illustrates that. The hadith of the person not waking up, the people not waking up for subah. Right, okay, moving on to this question. If a person drinks alcohol, why is this question important? Well, many people have said this includes the fast. If you drink alcohol, that your salah is not accepted for 40 days. And they rely on some hadith. And some people have said that the same applies to the fast. So if Muslims have drunk alcohol, or many scholars have included drugs with that. Now, unfortunately, drugs are very common in the Muslim community. They're not uncommon, put it like that. It's a shame, it's a tragedy, it's a cancer within our communities, but it is there. And the truth is, many Muslims do take drugs. It's a sad reality. We make dua for them. I think it completely destroys their lives. That said, should they fast? And does their fast, does this apply? The answer is their fast is absolutely fine. And they should fast. This does not apply. And this hadith in and of itself is actually unacceptable. Okay. Let me tell you what this hadith says. And you're going to be able to know that this hadith is nonsense as soon as you hear it. The hadith says, "Man sharib al-khamar wa sakir." Whosoever drank alcohol and became intoxicated, lam tuqbal lahu salatun arba'ina sabahan. For 40 days, I mean it says mornings, but it means days, his salah will not be accepted. Wa in mata dakhal an-nar. And if he dies, he'll go to the hellfire. This is what the hadith says, yeah. So it's a belief that you'd actually go to hell, even though, first of all, most of this ummah, Ash'aris and so on, we cannot even base beliefs on khabru ahad. Okay, we're not even allowed to base any beliefs on just isolated narrations. Okay, so this person will go to the hellfire. Then the Prophet says if he does tawbah, then Allah will accept him. But if he goes back to alcohol, then, you know, the same thing. His salah won't be accepted for 40 days. And if he dies, he goes to hell. And then the same thing. So this is repeated for up to 3 times. Then the Prophet allegedly says, this is nonsense, blasphemous. And it's really, it's a shame. I mean, and it's made up against our Prophet, but nevertheless, that he then allegedly said that if the person returns after 3 times to drinking alcohol, kana haqqan ala Allahi, that it is really a duty upon God that he will make him drink. Right, this is drink min radghat al-khabal. And the Sahaba said, what's radghat al-khabal? And allegedly the Prophet said, usaratu ahli nar. So you know the people melting away in the hellfire. You know the kind of stew that is being made by all their melting. That the stew of the hellfire. That usara, that kind of what's being squeezed into the hellfire. This guy is going to get that to drink. This is an utterly unacceptable hadith, right? Utterly unacceptable. So what are some of the problems? Where is this hadith transmitted? This hadith is transmitted in Ibn Majah, 1 riwayah, 3 riwayahs of it in Nasa'i, 4 riwayahs of it in the Musnad of Ahmad, 1 riwayah of it in Darimi. Those are the books. First of all of these hadith come through just one companion. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As is allegedly the person who said this. That's it. No other companion. Think about it, such a major thing. Salah not being accepted, dying, going to hell. No, nobody else knows this. Just Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Then pretty much from him, only one person, pretty much, I mean there's some other names, I'll go on to them, but mainly in the bulk of all of these narrations, is this person called Abdullah ibn Fayruz ad-Daylami. Abdullah ibn Fayruz ad-Daylami is allegedly transmitting this. He's the main transmitter of this in most of all of these narrations. There's 1-2 variations, I'll mention them, but it comes through this Abdullah ibn Fayruz ad-Daylami. Now, who is this person? They say, oh, he's the brother of so-and-so. And is he reliable? Oh, yeah, he's reliable. Why? Because he's transmitting from... No, but who said he's reliable? How does he become... There's a system to make him reliable. Ibn Hazm mentions this guy is unknown. We don't even know who this guy is. See, this is the problem with some of the muhaddithin. To justify their bid'ah, you know, to justify their careers and their work and what they're invested in, they just certify certain people. Because otherwise they feel that that this wouldn't work. But Ibn Hazm highlights like, look, this guy's majhul. And he's the main transmitter of this through the one. Right, so okay. Then from him, you have Rabi'a ibn Yazid al-Iyadi. who people say is a reliable scholar, but many people say, by the way, some people have said, by the way, when he transmits from Ibn Daylami, there's actually a person in the middle called Abu Ishaq, who's called Abu Idris, Al-Khawlani. Right now, so this Khawlani, Abu Idris Al-Khawlani is between them. Now but he drops him, or somebody before him drops him, and in none of the chains from Rabi'a to Ibn Fayruz al-Daylami is this guy mentioned. But then, in this chain before him, you've got Al-Walid ibn Muslim. Walid ibn Muslim. This guy used to transmit from so many du'afa people, so many weak people. He would on purpose drop people in the chain. This guy was kathiru tadlis and taswiya. Even if you shift this chain, let's say you go to the sanad in Darmi, it's transmitted, Darmi begins from Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Faryabi. Right, so who, by the way, Abu Hatim says he transmitted this hadith. Abu Hatim al-Razi says Faryabi transmitted the hadith that having nose hair prevents you from having leprosy. That ash-sha'ru fil anf, that this was amanu min judham. He then says that then later in life he backtracked and said, no, I'm not, it's not true. Yahya ibn Ma'in would say that hadith is absolute kidh. It's absolute utter lie. It is a lie made up against the Prophet. The Prophet never said anything like this. So you've got people like Faryabi, and then the same chain, you've got Awza'i. By the way, even Awza'i, even though he's a great imam in fiqh, great imam, and he does transmit hadith, what does Bayhaqi say about him? He says he transmits hadith from people. He says يحتج بأحاديث بحديث من لم يقف على حاله. So you take hadith from people who he didn't know so well about their circumstances. You go to the hadiths in Ahmad, once again the same kind of chains from Ibn Daylami, right? Then you've got another one. Okay, what about those which ain't from Ibn Daylami? So in the Musnad of Ahmad, you've got one from Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abihi an Jaddi. Now this chain, Yahya ibn Ma'in says, La hujjata fihi, that this is, and Abu Zur'a says that this is basically Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As's grandson, who used to, Abu Zur'a says, used to have a book he used to transmit from. This chain is such a weak chain where he says, from my father, from my grandfather. So you've got that. The rest, you're going to say that, oh, what about, there's another chain with Nafi ibn Asim transmitting from Abdullah ibn Amr. Oh, but who's in the beginning of the chain? It's Hamad ibn Salma al-Basri. What does Bayhaqi and other people say about him? Oh, his memory got messed up. Right? This is why Bukhari refused to transmit from him. The other hadith in Ahmad, once again from Ibn Daylami, answered the same thing before. You've got the other riwayat from Nasa'i. Once again, you've got them from Daylami. Now there is another variation from Mujahid. Now somebody may say, oh, what about that narration? That has Yazid ibn Abi Ziyad in it, who Hakim, Bayhaqi, Abu Zur'a al-Razi, Nasa'i, all these people have rejected. Right? So the point is, let alone others, there's Kalam in Mujahid himself, but my point is that these narrations, people, then there's another chain in Nasa'i which has Bakkah in it, who everybody knows Bakkah ibn al-Walid and the problems with him, and let alone then he has the same problems. You've got the same Ibn Daylami and this same chain. The point is that these narrations are absolutely isolated. They contradict the Quran. They contradict our beliefs in Islam. A person by drinking alcohol, and if he dies, does not go to hell. We do not believe that. Muslims generally do not believe. So this hadith cannot be true. And it is a matter of belief. And therefore it clashes with the Quran. It clashes with our principles. And it clashes with reason. That why, just because of that one sin, Allah would throw him in the hellfire. As in, he's clearly destined for hell. Because it says, then he's definitely going to hell. So that doesn't make any sense. It is a hadith da'if, people, okay? Unacceptable. So the fasts, the salah is valid still. And if, once again, things like alcohol and drugs are bad, they are wrong, they are haram. On drugs, it depends. Drugs is a spectrum. Some drugs may not be haram, but they're still bad for people. I mean, they're still something that we condemn. Now, that said, they do none of these things violate the... I mean, if you've had them, that doesn't mean you can't fast. It doesn't mean your fast won't be accepted. That's what I want to say. Cool, people. Well, we've stretched this on quite a bit. What I'm going to do is quickly touch up on our dear friend, and then we'll call this a wrap. The reason being is during Ramadan, I won't be going through Monday nights with Mufti, so there isn't la ba's if we slightly stretch this one. Right, just one moment. I'm going to have to go back and find our good old dear friend. Right, so people, right now, ya salam. Where is he? Where is he? Our good old friend. You see, people, I've never heard of this Nabeel Nisar Sheikh. That's a profile for Muzmatch. That I found him on Tinder. No, I'm joking. What the hell would he put that profile on Tinder for anyway? I mean, right. So this guy, he's made a video dedicated to me. So the least I could do is give him some time a day. He made this video saying, right, he's in defense of Imam Nawawi and Imam Ibn Hazm against the vile slander of Muftatin. Not Mufti, Muftatin. Ay, Muftatin Abu Layth Al-Mariq, not Al-Maliki, Al-Mariq, meaning the apostate, the one who's left Islam. In addition to that, he goes on to very kindly, this is on his Facebook page, by the way. He does go on kindly to, in this, call me scum, devil, Mariq from the deen, an apostate. He does that at about 24 minutes into it. He also has no problem in... he misrepresents my whole argument, but that's aside, I'll answer to that. At about 1 hour, 20 minutes into it, he says, this scum piece of shit. This scum piece of shit, Abu Layth. So anyway, so my friend, आपने याद किया तो हम आ गए. वो आएंगे थामे जिगर, देख लेना. Allah, Allah, Allah. So, my friend, let's see if we can.
This Nobel scholar, whose books were given so much acceptance by all of the Muslims.
All of the Muslims.
Allah placed acceptance in the hearts of the Muslims for the books of this pious scholar. And this vile scum, this piece of shit, Abu Layth, he comes and slanderously accuses Imam al-Nawawi.
I have Bin Laden. So basically, now what to do? I have Bin Laden. So basically, what Bin Laden is saying here, people, is he feels. So just to clarify the point, so you guys know what's happening. Right now, a few weeks ago in some of my sessions spoke about bisexuality, homosexuality. And I said that, look, Muslims need to stop being homophobic. And then I mentioned how scholars in the past were they acknowledged the bisexuality that human beings had, especially men, and they almost stated it as though it's a fact. Like, so they speak of it in a way that they expect you to be like, that's obvious. So I gave the example of Imam Nawawi when he's reading about and I've read out his fatwa saying that when he's asked about boys who haven't developed full beards, and can you look at them and can you be like this with them or hang around with, and he says no, it's haram, it's haram. And then he goes on to say it's because they are like women. And then he says, in fact, many of them are, he says, in fact, some of them are more prettier than many or most women. Now, you see, so what Imam Nawawi was doing there is acknowledging, by me saying, like if I say that, look, this guy is prettier than a woman, than all these women. You see, when you're comparing them, it's different if I just say, oh, this guy's a good looking person, because that's just a regular statement. But when I compare, if I said this guy is better looking than most men, then I'm comparing him with men. The moment you compare a man as being better looking than women, you're looking at it from a sexual perspective. Now, because he's talking about it sexually, that's what the question is. So I said that Imam Nawawi is acknowledging the bisexual nature of humans. So, and then I say many other ulama as well. I did not say Imam Nawawi was gay. I didn't say that. Although obviously I crack jokes all the time, but I didn't say that. And I didn't say he said homosexuality was permissible. But this, so Bin Laden here has a rant for about a whole hour going on about trying to say homosexuality is haram. And I said in my clip that, look, most of the ulama always said homosexuality was haram. Some of them did disagree, like Yahya ibn Aktham and so on. And he speaks about Yahya ibn Aktham saying, oh, but why they don't, where is books then? Why they don't transmit this then? Why they don't transmit? Well, obviously, because, you see, they were going to bury a lot of this kind of discourse. They were going to bury this. This is natural. That is how institutionalized religion works. What to do. But they have got all of this. Why don't you check the books when they speak about Yahya ibn Aktham? Why don't you read up on this? And he said, oh, he was very close to Khalifa Mamun and Amin. I know, but Khalifa Mamun was also gay, isn't he? He's forgotten that Khalifa Amin was hardcore homosexual. Hardcore. Like, he was only interested, he wouldn't even look at girls. And Ma'mun was openly bisexual. And Ma'mun actually became bisexual because of Yahya ibn Aktham. He was influenced by him to that extent to try it out. So the Khalifa of the time was rampantly, openly gay. I mean, this is like a known thing. In fact, Amin's mum she brought several slave girls and servant girls and would cut their hair and dress them up as boys and call them ghulamiyat. That's what they became known as. Just so he starts taking an interest in girls. I mean, this is the Khalifa-i-Waqt. The caliph. You know, Khalifa comes from the word khalf, from the behind. The behind. They must have taken a different meaning to it. Acha. We lead from behind. Don't worry. So here, Bin Laden, he goes on to, look, check this out. I need you guys to hear this stuff, man.
Some of them are even better looking than many women. Some of them, young boys,
look at this,
adolescent boys, without there being any need for it, any Shari'i need for it, any dire need for it. And they cited this.
He's reading the fatwa of Nawawi.
ولأنه في معنى المرأة. يعني one reason is because Allah says lower your gazes. This is number one. Number two, ولأنه في معنى المرأة, because he is just like a woman.
A boy.
He's as good as a woman. He's as good as a
Why?
girl.
Why?
Because he has no facial hair. So people find it lustful to look at them just like they were
he's just like just as good as a woman, just as good. Why, Maulana Sahib? Why? Because he has no facial hair. Dude, this one is obvious. It's good like a woman. Cha. So all the men that you see clean shaven, that means they're exciting you. You naughty. You harami.
To look at women. So that's why it's haram to look at them.
This is that, boys. Now listen. Oh.
Moreover, even some of them,
some of the boys,
some of them are even better looking than many women.
They're better looking than many women.
Some of those boys.
Why?
Are better looking.
Why, ya Maulana? Why?
Could be ugly. She could be an old woman.
Did you hear that? Oh, damn.
He is just like a woman.
Right.
He's as good as a woman.
You gotta hear this.
Good as a beautiful girl, because he has no facial hair. So people find.
Why are some of them more prettier than many women?
So,
why?
That's why it's haram to look at them. بل بعضهم أحسن من كثير من النساء.
Why?
Moreover, even some of them, بعضهم, some of them
Bin Laden
are even better looking than many women. Some of those boys.
Why?
Are better looking أحسن من كثير من النساء than many women. A woman could be ugly. She could be an old woman. She could be not so pretty to look at.
So let me get this right. Bin Laden over here is saying that the reason why some of these boys can be sexy is why are some boys why are clean shaven men or boys sexy or prettier sexually, because this is talking about sexual, prettier sexually than many women, because many women can be ugly. Did he just say that? For God's sake, did he, this bloody Neanderthal, just call women ugly? I mean, for God's sake, he is a prime reason why incest is haram. This, like, if as exhibit A, the love child of a brother and sister, are your, let me guess, your mum and dad, at worst case, they're cousins, and then their cousins, and their cousins, and I bet some of them in between. This is why siblings shouldn't have children, because it's just wrong. Because how the hell did that ugly thing call women ugly? Oh my God, I swear, you could not make this stuff up. His reasoning, and he's saying this like this is so common sense. Like, of course some boys are sexier than women because many women are ugly. What the hell, for God's sake? Did the Predator just say that? Does that just come from the Predator? For God's sake, oh my God, ya salam. What to do? What? No, what? I don't know. Of course, many boys, when I'm sitting around boys, I must do Ghad al-Basar, this one. I swear, this guy. Oh, Bin Laden. Baz, aa jao. Baz. Not bacha Baz. This guy must have misunderstood. Somebody must have said to him, Baz aa jao. Like, fix yourself. And he misunderstood it as bacha Baz. So he just became a pedophile. Honestly, you know, if you ever needed to know like what the next terrorist or bloody is gonna look like, this is the guy right here. For God's sake, I swear, this guy. I watched this thing. I was falling over laughing, thinking, "Oh my God, did he just say that?" And he's saying it like so up. Yes, what? Of course, they like women, and he's actually proving the point which I set off to say in the beginning. He's actually saying, "Yeah, I find." I would need to do Ghadd al-Basar because the boy's just like women, and he's like women, and because he's got no hair, and you bloody retard! What the hell is that? It's just like women, and this is why you have all the homosexual rape going on in Al-Mamlakat al-Arabiyyah al-Saudiyyah, you know, in the Mamlaka. In the Mamlaka, bruv. In the Mamlaka. So in the Saudi kingdom, this is why you've got all this kind of, you know, where they're raping, unfortunately, all these young boys. Because this is the kind of lunacy, this is the kind of ludicrousy that you've got going on. People say, that's like, woman, and I got beer going out there. Anyway, yaar, koi dalil. यार कोई दलील लाते कोई now what to do I'm pretty sure maybe Nabeel bin Laden will watch this. Well, bin Laden sahab, if you do, my message, look, I've got a beard, so you can't find me attractive like that, you know. I've got a beard, yaar. Yeah, your beard hai yaar, ye daadi hai yaar. Qari sahab, जरा फासले से मिलो, हाँ, फासला रखिए, फासला. ये बिन लादेन, हाँ, हमको हल्के में मत लियो. I am thinking if Bin Laden wants to have a dialogue, why you know message me, you know, we can talk, you know, no private, no sliding into my DMs, but maybe we could have a dialogue, what to do. This is the kind of nonsense that we've got, people. This is why the Ummah is struggling, because these people have got ton loads of petrol dollars to flood the internet with all this material that they want. And then you end up with people like this, because somebody goes onto Google, they look for Islam, and this is what they find. And they find a goddamn a beauty pageant. I mean, I'd want to say more to this guy. You know, it's like when I look at him, there's more I want to say to, but then I think, you know what? Life beat me to it. In fact, in his case, genetics beat me to it. Wallah, ya salam. Wallah, ya akhi, wallah. Okay, wallah. Ramadan Kareem. This guy, you know what? You got to keep these kind of people away from the Taraweeh. With all those young people praying. This one, dirty mind, you know, this one, dirty mind. You know, you got to be careful, you know, dirty mind. This one. People, with that, I'm going to leave you all to it. It's been late. It's been good expressing tahe dil se ye पैगाम मोहब्बत to our friend Bin Laden, right? So it's been good, but in Ramadan in general, I'm thinking I might do some just intermittent kind of Q&A, brief kind of video clips, but I won't be doing the Monday nights live. I'll give, you know, as always, as each year, leave Ramadan out, so I hope that you can use the time wisely. I will be sharing videos. I will try and maybe intermittently come on, just deal with some topics. If there's any issues, do feel free to reach out to me. Do send me your messages. Do send me your questions. I will try to respond, inshallah. Take very good care of yourselves. Remember me in your kind du'as, people. Say a little dua for banda na cheez. you know, in the Urdu culture, right, when they're about to praise themselves, they kind of belittle, like to act humble, they kind of like say, oh, this worthless, they kind of say all these kind of worthless things about themselves, like bandana cheese, like this person who's nothing, or haqir. Haqir is like despised. And then they have like ahkar, the most despised. The most despicable. Yeah, whoa, man, calm down, calm down, bro. You're kind of this. You're taking this a bit too far, getting into character. But people, remember me in your kind du'as. Inshallah, have an awesome Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.